Okay, so yes, this is the last panel we have in this room, and it is the future of mining. Everything good, Alex?
It will be the same like in slide. We can change the seat.
You guys good? Oh, switch seats because
Okay. Makes sense.
aesthetics matter a lot, guys. All right, so we have our gentlemen switch. This is perfect. Okay, so the inaugural tweet by our wonderful magical crypto friends for this panel was that proof of work is the foundation of Bitcoin and that they have lined up an amazing panel of mining experts, and that is absolutely true with Pavel, Alex, Gordon, and Kristy-Leigh, as you guys will absolutely find out. So since we're the last panel and we have to play and get crazy, but moreover with the FUD recently, with the Binance hack, we actually may, Adam Back may pull kind of an illusionist, if you guys have seen the movie, situation and jump on stage at some point to start talking about that. But with the FUD, with what was happening, potential reorg, with price action, yes, we just hit 7K. With everything that's happening right now, talking about the power of mining is a hot and powerful subject. So we are going to start a very healthy, fun, provocative, crazy debate where I am even going to allow you panelists to ask questions to yourself and to have a little fun. We'll make this one interactive. So if we can start off directly. Pavel with brains, please introduce yourself and then I'll dive in with the first question.
Yeah, just briefly. My name is Pavel Moravec. I'm co-CEO of Brains and Slushpool. I was involved in running Slushpool for the last 6 years already. This is the basic stuff what you should know. And
Alex, what's up with Bitfury?
So first of all, my name is Alex Petrov. I'm Chief Information Officer in Bitfury. I'm in Bitfury since beginning. Also, I was supporting the pool operations almost 5 years. I was rewriting multiple times the pool source code, and I know all the details quite deeply technically how we're working, how we're operating. I have also medical background, and I have also economical education, and it's nicely fit on the Bitcoin, and then I found Bitcoin, so I get this is it.
Thank you. And Gordon.
Hi, everybody. My name is Gordon Au, CEO of Innosilicon. We are essentially the ASIC manufacturer like Pavel. Oh, sorry, Alex. And in the last year, we had actually introduced 8 different ASIC miners for different coins. So we position ourselves as a all-coin ASIC manufacturer. And then this year, we're coming up with T3 Plus on the Bitcoin, and we have the GPU coming up as well. So we're really looking for providing innovative solutions for the mining community. And we believe there's a lot of opportunity next year because essentially technology innovation plateaued a little bit, and we believe it's time to actually do the mining.
Thank you, Gordon. And Kristy-Leigh, you have quite an interesting background.
I do.
Please tell us about what you're up to specifically right now, and also a little bit about your background.
Yeah, I'm Kristy-Leigh Minehan, CTO of Core Scientific. We're still a little bit in stealth mode, but we are a blockchain infrastructure and AI infrastructure company. And some of you may know me most recently from programmatic proof of work, or ProgPow, which is the new proof of work algorithm that Ethereum is currently auditing and looking to switch to. And yeah, I've been involved in crypto for quite a long time, professionally since 2010. And I've been building mining farms at scale since I was a kid, I'd say.
Fantastic. We're going to dive into
Not too long ago.
Okay, you're a kid.
Yes, I am.
a lot of those topics. So let's start with the potential elephant in the room here. Pavel, putting you on the spot. Binance hack. What did you think about the Binance hack? Do you think that the proposed reorg was even possible? What are your thoughts?
That's an interesting thing. Hacks are ever present. It happened, it's going to happen. We just need to deal with it. So it's pretty obvious. The whole thing about reorging, it's interesting because mining is not in a spotlight too often, and it's a critical part of the whole Bitcoin infrastructure. But in general, I think it was basically impossible to do the reorg. There is a lot of technical reasons why I would think it's impossible, but the social or financial incentives for miners themselves are not really pointing them to do this kind of attack. Technically, it's doable. We would all can like have a calls, or I don't know how, but so on the technical level you can do it, but in practice I don't believe it's possible basically.
Thank you. And Alex, a lot of people have been talking about the game theory behind this hack, potential reorganization, that it would never happen, that it would not be possible. You know, what are your thoughts on this?
So, first of all, it's really complicated technical and social trick if you would like to perform the reorg. So I don't want even to talk about the rolling out back all the transactions for a whole day, because it's practically exploding the trust for all ecosystem. It's absolutely the same way if you are like opening your own bank and one day you are trying to just lie to your customer. Can you open another one bank? Can you continue to operate your business? No. So if you're rolling back, for example, just 12 hours, it's meaning the practically failing all the users who was performing transactions during last 12 hours. It's just a mesh. And technically, if even the pools came together and they agree what they are performing rollback attack, it's meaning they should write the software. They should coordinate all their activities. It's also impacting all huge pools because they are taking the hash power, they are paying for customers. They should pay twice or triple more money, explain them what they are doing, why they are doing, and it will take, even if it will be in emergency mode. So I think at least 5-7 days. And during that time, you should roll back even not one day, but whole week. And it's almost not possible. So right now, it's quite stable environment. A lot of people are running a lot of businesses. So even the loss of 7,000 Bitcoins, it's very cheap price. Yeah. For all industry, it's much easier just to pay, just to donate the company who lose all that money, and it will be much, much cheaper. So it's a question about resources. It's easier just to pay instead of technically perform very serious sequence of activities.
Thank you. And Gordon, a little bit of a switch. Do you think that proof of work changes can help decentralize mining, or would they do more harm than good?
I don't believe in proof of work change because it's not good to change the rule in the middle of the game. A lot of times it's interests are driven. There's special interest group behind a lot of this motivation. I believe it's more healthy to have an even playing field. People investing in it. It's naturally diversifying. Or right now I believe in a lot of mining, retail become a little bit less proportional in the whole overall industry, but let's play it out. We should not too many intervene it so that it become tilted towards certain group. So I don't believe in POW change after the game is on, and I believe it's more healthy to have even playing field and people competing on technology innovation. People are investing in long-term health. It's more predictable that way. So disruptive on rules is not something I would advocate.
Thank you. And Kristy-Leigh, you had explained that you wrote the new proof of work algorithm that Ethereum would be adopting in Istanbul. What are your thoughts on, and you explained, I believe, that it's a GPU-based proof of work. Mm-hmm. Do you share the same opinion?
I believe it depends on what social contract the miners actually entered into the algorithm with. So specifically, when Ethereum was created, there was a social contract brokered with miners that said, hey, this is gonna be an ASIC resistant algorithm, meaning cryptocurrency ASIC resistance. And miners brought into that dream and they invested into that dream. Contrast that with Bitcoin, which had no social contract really brokered besides one CPU, one vote, which SHA-256D couldn't obviously fulfill that, but there was no real rules of the game. The rules for Ethereum were set from its very beginning. So I do believe that it's important that when a proof of work algorithm is designed, it has its targeted hardware and targeted user base laid out very clearly in the white paper. Because people are going to invest their power and invest their infrastructure according to those social rules. So I do agree, you can't change the rules of the game midway through. It just so happens with Ethereum, the rules of the game were, hey, we want to be focused on GPUs.
I don't believe anybody has published anything saying Ethereum you cannot build an ASIC, right? Because in early days, there are people working on it. It's just difficult to do, and the gain is small.
Yellow paper. The yellow paper for Ethereum specifically refers to ASICs as a plague and a scourge. Now that, and on their, they've changed their website recently, but the previous iteration of the website actually advertised that, hey, Ethereum is only mineable with GPUs. If you want to mine Ethereum with an ASIC, act with caution because ethash is designed to be ASIC resistant. That's not to say that ASICs are bad. It's just that Ethereum very specifically had a targeted hardware base.
Yep,
So
but
Kristy-Leigh,
sorry, do you think it is a good idea to make rules on a website and then the whole coin should work around? Because in my opinion, it's from the beginning trying to make mining ASIC resistant, it's really difficult to do.
It's difficult to do if you don't know how to design. It's difficult to do if you don't understand how hardware works.
And do you think is it in principle possible?
It is possible. You have to understand what qualities of hardware you want to target. The whole goal with ASIC resistance, people confuse it. They're trying to, what they really mean to say is they want to have centralization resistance. Any kind of algorithm can have an ASIC built for it. What you can do is you can minimize the advantage you can gain with a fixed function ASIC. So if you're going to make a proof of work algorithm specifically for FPGAs, for instance, you'd target an FPGA's natural programmability and some of its SDKs potentially. If you're going to make one for a CPU, you'll take advantage of a CPU's natural qualities. That's not to say you can't then go make an ASIC for it, but at some point, if you design your proof of work algorithm accordingly, the economic incentive to build a fixed function ASIC isn't going to be there.
Okay.
May I provide a couple of arguments? First of all, the CPU, GPU, FPGA, and ASIC is about the optimization. So it's normal evolution. They have different choices. The CPU can perform like multi-purpose programs, but it's not efficient from a point of power consumption. If we have blockchain infrastructure has operational expenses and have CapEx expenses. And if you have operational expenses very high, and the another one blockchain has operational expenses very low, you will be, after some time, is not competitive on the market. And then you're saying they are building ASIC resistant protocol. It's practically meaning you're preventing optimization. You're practically shooting yourself in the leg. So it's the same way, like build a database and say, I'm building database in a purpose to prevent any possible optimization in the future. And the second point, so the reason why the people designing the different solutions, so it's only optimization and requirements. So if you're saying it's not possible to build the ASIC, in most cases it's possible. Instead, if you're consuming a lot of memory, if you're using the GPU, you're paying a lot of patents fee. It's meaning whole blockchain, paying not for manufacturing who are manufacturing the ASICs, they are paying just patent fee. For a memory, if you like using memory consuming algorithm, you're paying like 20–40% from a chip, just like a memory patent.
So let's talk about optimization for a moment, because optimization is really how do you make sure that the hardware is executing the algorithm as efficiently as possible, and more specifically, how do you make sure the hardware has maximum throughput? That's my point. Proof of work algorithms have to go hand in hand with the targeted hardware. So a CPU-based algorithm isn't, we're not talking about putting
What does
Bitcoin.
it mean? What does it mean, CPU-based algorithm?
So a
Because
CPU,
the algorithm is definitely not bound to any particular hardware.
we'll take RandomX for example. So Monero's new proof of work algorithm that they're looking around and auditing, it's actually designed to take effect of all of the CPU's inherent characteristics and turn that into a proof of work algorithm. What it just means is that, hey, if you're going to have a GPU running proof of RandomX, it's not going to be any more capable of producing as many hashes at the same power consumption as a CPU would do so.
I'm not agree about the power consumption because there is huge illusion. So then you're saying the like very high hash rate and very high power consumption, they are in the balance. So the ASIC consuming approximately from 10,000 till 25,000 less energy performing the same single operation like a CPU. The reason why they are using the ASICs and using ASICs also on a regular basis each day without even noticing what you are using the ASICs. Your phone Wi-Fi is ASIC. Your phone GSM communication module is ASIC. LTE module is ASIC. And these allow to decrease the manufacturing price on the massive scale, and it's allow also to minimize the power consumption. Before, phones was not able to work like a couple of days. They was working only 40–20 minutes because it was just the integral champs on the huge plate PCB board, and the power consumption was very high. So the ASIC was used, then the sending also like the satellites in the space because they allow also to minimize the power consumption. But the ASIC also performed the same functions, consuming less energy, but in 1,000 times faster.
Simply because you can take the algorithm and make it do less amounts of operations, therefore consuming less power.
No. I want to actually add, right? The GPU and ASIC is a general category. You're talking about GPU, there's 10,000 different GPUs, right?
Correct.
Your algorithm is like, if you take the latest GPU compared to the old GPU, it's 10 times power consumption difference. So if you're talking about GPU compatible, you're only talking about it's going to favor the latest GPU according to the documents Oven or something, like Doven. Doven just recently wrote that up, right? There was if you use the Prague-Pow and they favor the latest GPU against the GPU that is mainstream, so people actually lose 30% power reduction and they lose a lot of hash power, the mainstream guys versus the guys that buy the latest GPU. And on the same token, if you're talking about ASIC, ASIC is essentially more specific on things, but we can also be very generic in a way, just like the one that we're designing. We're designing for mining and AI. We're going to have like 4 to 5 times more efficient than even the NVIDIA GPU coming forward. So I don't believe
4 to 5 times more efficient.
Yes,
in certain things. $180 billion company.
In certain things, yeah, in certain way, yeah.
Gordon.
We're going to be more efficient than that way. So I don't believe like if you design an algorithm just for NVIDIA, it's going to help anything, because NVIDIA only going to use your latest algorithm on the latest mapping of the latest model, but the older model are not going to be favored, and they're going to lose out. They're not going to basically have any advantage by using the latest one.
Kristy, for sure Kristy-Leigh, I'm sorry, for sure allowed a response to that. I will add something that I'd like to ask you on top of that, and then I would like to move to a question for both Alex and Gordon about overt ASIC boost, actually. So please respond for sure, and also a provocative question, but do you see a place also for proof of work and proof of stake having a use case in the work that you guys are doing at Core Scientific?
Oh, yeah. So I just want to point out that most of the people that write stuff about ProgPow currently are consuming what other people are saying, and it's an entire cesspit of misinformation. Part of the reason we need an audit. A lot of the miners have actually done a lot of independent verification. Some of them are actually here in the audience today. And ProgPow is targeted at the current infrastructure as it exists today, meaning 570s, 580s, GTX 1060s, et cetera, et cetera. It has a tunable component to it that allows, should someone choose, to consistently tweak it to keep matching the next generation of hardware. So that you can have your algorithm evolve as hardware life cycles evolve. Going to the question about proof of work versus proof of stake, yes. Part of the responsibility of being a blockchain infrastructure provider is meaning that you don't choose between proof of stake versus proof of work. So part of what we do at Core Scientific is we do allow anyone that wants to do some form of staking or verification or spin up their own nodes to have a safe place to host that with N+1 or N+2 redundancy under the US. And proof of work and proof of stake can live in harmony. At the end of the day, blockchains are just tools. And it's just about picking the right tool for the right job.
Thank you. I think definitely gentlemen on this panel may have some interesting thoughts to conclude on that one. But Gordon, if I can move to you, why have you not made a move to enter into the patent agreement that Dragon Mint had put out regarding overt ASIC boost?
Oh, you mean, what is your question again?
And I could be totally wrong, but my understanding is that, and I think both you and Alex's companies have not made a move to enter into the patent agreement that Dragon Mint had put out.
Oh, I mean, patent thing, right? We already have a licensed patent, so I don't think we need to enter into Dragon Mint type of thing. And then that was ahead of, that was ahead of it. So we acquired a license actually before that. So,
thank you, Alex.
So they analyzed the ASIC boost even like 6 years ago. And 6 years ago, we was thinking about some kind of like ASIC boost looking optimization. But from the engineering point of view, the review how complicated the design process can be, how big the chip can become and result, and what the price will be for a chip, and combining all together all engineering resources, expenses, OPEX and CAPEX, they decide it doesn't worth it. So instead, they build the smaller chip who perform hashing operation without ASIC boost very fast in very optimal manner. So they also perform a couple of optimization and tricks on the regular mathematics just to make it faster and cheaper. And it's perfectly working without ASIC boost. Right now, they're designing 2 new chips, and one of them also supporting the ASIC boost, and they also apply for ASIC boost license like 1.5, maybe 2 years ago. So we know how they're working. We analyze the ASIC boost covert and overt. And in some cases, it can also provide the optimization. So if the protocol and community agree that there is no risk because the covert and overt has the huge difference. The one of the ASIC boost version, it can decrease the performance of whole network because it's playing with transactions inside the block. And the second one is just rolling a couple of bits in the header, and that's absolutely okay. It doesn't harm any productivity of the network. So, and I think the second one is absolutely applicable and can be used. And it can also save the electrical energy. So, and it can provide the same protection for a Bitcoin network, it's okay.
Thanks, Alex. And Pavel, switching to you about open source. What are your thoughts about closed open source miners firmware?
Yeah, our position is pretty clear. We're obviously pro open source in everything, basically. And particularly in the mining space, it's similar to holding your coins if you own your, or it's similar to having your keys under your control if you own Bitcoins. And Matt mentioned briefly that right now mining it's pretty scary in some from some security point of view. And it applies to the internet and to running miners themselves. So we think a miner should have an opportunity to audit the firmware and see that it really does what it should do. There is a couple of possible attacks you can do with closed source firmwares, and we just basically think a user should have the opportunity to choose what firmware it runs. It allows new features or whatever, but the security thing is the critical one.
As a follow-up to, I think, a very important aspect that you raised, that as a follow-up to Matt about security and people worrying about security, what do you see as the trend of, retail versus do you see it switching from retail to more institutions that are entering the game and staying in the game as the miners?
Yeah, it's pretty clear that miners are getting larger and larger. We can see much more institutions buying hardware and running as a for-profit company, which is in contrast to history when a lot of guys loving Bitcoin mined. The shift is pretty clear, and the operation security point of view is getting better, of course, but still we face a lot of miners who cannot do the security right. So every single piece of the infrastructure what can help everybody in the space getting more secured would be fine. And the stuff Matt was talking about better protocol, it's one of the critical infrastructure things which need to be changed, obviously. And the firmware is another part.
Thanks, Pavel. And Kristy-Leigh, curious as to your thoughts as a follow-up from Pavel. Again, just how do you see the trend? Is it going to move away from retail users to institutional? What are you seeing in your very much enterprise world?
Yeah, it depends on the algorithm. We're seeing that with Bitcoin specifically, I wouldn't say it's enterprise per se, but I would say it's much larger businesses, miners that have scaled up over the years, or miners that have sort of partnered together and decided to increase their investments. That being said, even as a hosting provider, we see tons of smaller clients, people with 10, 20, 30 ASICs that are very eager and excited about the future of mining, and they just jump in. With some of the smaller coins going out of the Bitcoin world, out of the Ethereum world, and more of your politically correct terminology is altcoins. You see those being more, I hesitate to say decentralized, but it is. You see more single miners around there. So the one point I'd like to follow up on is the point about closed source versus open source. Being a large-scale infrastructure provider, specifically US-based, we've had a very interesting experience with a lot of the closed source firmware that's running on our machines. Specifically, we were unable to get insurance, cybercrime insurance, if we had firmware running on these machines that we couldn't prove we knew what was on them. Specifically, if it's closed source, we have to be able to prove to our auditors what is running on these machines in case of cybercrime or in case of attack. Because of Brains OS, we were able to pass that kind of audit. That is a problem, and it's actually starting to scare us a little bit as we see the new machines coming out, and we see they're all closed source. SSH is disabled. that presents a bit of a problem for us as a large-scale hosting provider. How the hell do we manage tens of thousands of machines when we can't even have SSH access? So that forces us to think, okay, what do we do? Do we become completely vertically integrated and start doing our own firmware and our own driver stack for these devices? Or do we invest in reverse engineering that? Or do we try and partner with the manufacturers? That's a scary world that I'm not looking forward to, especially as a CTO, of figuring out, hey, how do I work with all these machines when there's no way to manage them at scale?
Thank you, Kristy-Leigh. And Gordon, a question for you, and this should be also an ability to respond to something Alex had said. But what trends are you seeing in mining in relation to energy and also data center infrastructure?
I believe it depends on different coins. Let's say new coins, they're pretty much, they start to repeat the old history of Bitcoin's evolution. Its hash rate goes up, rapidly at the beginning as kind of plateau. Bitcoin is crazy. Bitcoin going so much scale that, I think the operator on Bitcoins are very big if they really want to seriously mine in Bitcoins, because it's so hard to mine a coin right now, right? So if you look at green and other coins, we still have a lot of opportunities. So I believe it depends on different coins and what do you believe in. I believe in general, it's become more diversified field, depending on what you invest in, different coins, different situation. Institutional investors are so much on Bitcoin right now. They're not so much on altcoin as much. So there are opportunity for a lot of people to enter the field ahead of them. And especially institutional investors in US are very conservative. Last year until now, there hasn't been much investment in mining. So we see the hash rate being pretty flat. Yeah, it even go down a little bit after the bear market. So I believe for faithful miners, if you believe in certain coins, you like the core group, you like their vision, there's always opportunity to get in, even with your solo mining for a period of time. And mining is not actually, you don't have to do it forever. You only have to do like for 6 months to 12 months for altcoin. And then Bitcoin, I don't know like after 1 year what's gonna happen. So I think the timing window is now. If you want to mine, you just have to invest. So from our standpoint, we are supporting the whole ecosystem. We're customer driven. We'll see, how it's going to play out. But I believe generally there are only like 5 to 10 coins worth mining, because a lot of coins are not going to survive maybe after a couple of years. So I don't believe we should speculate too much on this. It's just that, depending on what you like, you choose whatever field you want to do and get in early. The earlier you get in, the better technology you have, then I think you'll be better off in the long run.
Thanks. And Alex, I'm going to ask you a business question. What pain points are you seeing that users and potential users who want to be mining are experiencing that is not being addressed right now by manufacturers, by the ecosystem potentially generally?
I think the main reason, because the Bitcoin is still very young, and the evolution was happened, it was not even exponential, it was just the rocket, it was just shoot out. And all the optimizations was happened in very short time. And this is also reason why we only now starting to optimize the protocols, why we only now start to build the open firmware for miners, because before it was happened so fast. They create some sort of a software and they just running all the operation, replacing all the hardware, rebuilding all the data center, increasing, optimizing a lot of things was happened in very short time. Right now they almost reach the highest point. They're using the latest technology for chip manufacturing, 7 nanometers, 5 nanometers. So there is no more space to grow. They optimize everything what was possible on the hardware side. Right now we need to optimize more software side. And they also need to optimize all our operations or our data centers. They have experienced how to decrease all the operational expenses for a regular data center. And we're using a lot of tricks just to make them as low priced as possible. So, and this is maximizing the profit. If before it was a lot of engineering, a lot of experimenting, a lot of people was just not able to survive because it was happening really fast. So from, based on my experience, each year from 10 new miners, 8 are dying. They are facing for bankruptcy because they are not able to calculate and keep in mind all possible risks. They are not able to perform their activities on the required level. And right now we almost hit the peak of the optimizations, and we can share our knowledge. We can create the open firmware, and it will be much, much easier for everyone just to manage all their equipment. They can share all our knowledge, how they're operating the mining data centers. And I think it will be more open.
Thanks, Alex.
It will be more efficient, which is obviously a good thing for Bitcoin as a whole.
So the optimization, so the Bitcoin is, once again, I'm repeating myself, so it's infrastructure. And if we're thinking from a business side, if you can support the infrastructure for a lower cost, so then you can offer for customer lower price for same type of operation. And if you're comparing the regular banking system, so the Bitcoin compensating a lot of the issues what banking system has. They have offices, they have administrative resources, they doesn't working 24/7, they only working like 8 hours per day, 5 days a week. Bitcoin working 24/7. It doesn't have offices, it doesn't have employees. It's meaning it can perform the same operation at the lower cost. And it also performing the same operation in times more faster. Banking doesn't have competition for last 60 years. It's absolutely standard process. Bitcoin mining and Bitcoin was optimizing a lot of things. They're optimizing the software, they're trying to perform the same operations more efficient. And then people even comparing how fast working banking system, how fast working is Visa system. So Bitcoin can perform same operation in 1,000 times faster. The Visa is not the regular money. The Bitcoin is the money and messaging system in one pack. Visa is just a transport. And if you would like to compare Visa for something, you shouldn't compare the Visa to Bitcoin, because the Visa is just a transport. It's better to compare it to Lightning. In comparing the Visa and Lightning, the Visa performing one transactions for tenths of a seconds, and Lightning can perform one transactions in milliseconds. It's meaning it's already 10,000 times faster and 1,000 times more efficient.
Thanks,
Sorry, I will be trying to.
No, it's good. And for the three of you, actually, just so that you can also answer, and I'm also very curious, so maybe this is selfish, but also from your different vantage points, what other pain points are you hearing from users and other people who would like to become users that are providing and becoming barriers to entry for others? So I should say, let me restate. What pain points are you listening and hearing from your users, potentially that are making them drop off and no longer mine? Retail and institutional, based on your various backgrounds, as well as interested users that it's thus providing a barrier to entry and they're not buying.
You talking about a miner or Bitcoin usage? Both, right?
Yeah, I mean, just from
you can choose.
You can choose from. It's a really open-ended question. From with your company specifically, then
I think in the past, right?
Where you may be losing sales and why, right? Like, or who's upset and why? Who's calling your customer service, phone and getting really angry and why?
Yeah, I think in the past, especially past 1 year, technology advancement has been so rapid that people sometimes lose track on what model to buy, and they're hesitant to buy. That's why it become an arms race at a certain stage that people just want to wait. So this is one thing that people are a little bit hesitating. And then the biggest problem is the price action. If price goes up, then everybody jump in, right? So just like last few days, we have like 10 times more orders than last 6 months, simply because price goes up. People think they have a general profit-making chance. And if we look at it, it's just the same thing like last year. Around the same time, the price was higher. People are not buying as much because last year was trending down, and this year is trending up. So this is a totally different sentiment. People start to have more belief in Bitcoins because it didn't die. It didn't like that spiral, right? So this is a good part. Most people invest in Bitcoin, they want to make some money. So that is a fundamental driven force for mining before. But I think in the future, we really need to see ease of use, because most people don't have a cold wallet. They don't know how to use a wallet. I think the software tier can be really helpful in the future if they use it like a Visa. A lot of people adopt it, and it's so easy to see your wallet, and then everybody have very good software to do different applications, buying different things for online ordering system. So I believe the biggest driven force going forward will be still applications. And then for mining, it's always ROI. So as simple as that. It's a big financial speculative market. It's a very miracle, right? In the world, there has been no market that across 100 countries you can do tradings and then be able to make money in the same type of platform. So that's why I think going forward is always, how do you reach normal, ordinary customers instead of those IT guys, those guys who understand mining. Most people don't understand mining. They don't understand Bitcoin. I think we still haven't break that barrier. It's still financial driven. It's still profit driven, in my point of view. So let's go beyond that and really have some application like a Visa card and MasterCard that you use it for international, kind of billing purpose or hedging or offshore, whatever you can think of. I think you need a big financial institution, you need a big adoption in the daily life to really have 10 times growth going forward.
Thanks. And Kristy-Leigh, a follow-up to that for onboarding your corporate clients, but also potentially since, again, you have a very interesting and different background, given that they have very different dreams and desires for such large institutions that you're working for, potentially that they're coming in because maybe they think Bitcoin will become the de facto standard at one point, or because if they don't get in on the game right now, kind of from a Bitcoin as an inspiration standpoint, and they start understanding the tech in a way that they can utilize it when the time is right. Are you also seeing what these gentlemen are saying, what Alex and Gordon are saying, that price point is really a deterrent for them because we're talking about very large institutions, or is it not? And if not, what is potentially deterring them right now, or what's your sales pitch that gets them in?
Customers are very diverse, first and foremost. We have the two buckets. We have the enterprise and we have the average home user or small miner. I don't say small meaning they only have 10 or 20 ASICs, but usually they're a single business and just have a small amount of employees. For them, price is very key. What kind of profit are they going to be making? And usually they're targeting, of all things, a 9-month break-even point, which is quite low in today's market. Now, your enterprise investors are a little different. Some of them are coming in specifically because they want to support some sort of application base, meaning they're laying out equipment just to keep mining to support that application layer. That can be with nodes, that can be with Bitcoin mining, that can be with other forms of mining. The big barrier to making a lot of these sales has actually been for us specifically equipment, getting equipment. Being in the US, we're a little disadvantaged, I'd say, because things take time to ship from overseas. We have to deal with tariffs, we have to deal with shipping. We've become quite vertically integrated in solving some of those issues, but it's still a bit of a barrier. Usually when someone wants to buy a Bitcoin ASIC, they want it to buy it now. They want it fully hosted, installed, they want it mining, they just want to press a button and boom, they're making money. That's kind of been the barrier for us making a lot of sales, because you still have to have, hey, you want 100 ASICs? I have to go talk to the ASIC manufacturer. Oh, it's going to take 3 months to produce, then we have to have it shipped, then we have to have it installed. That's a long process. Instead, going with this fully hosted model where equipment's already installed and customers can just buy has helped us quite a bit. On the application side, or more what's hindering people from coming into Bitcoin, it's the silliest thing, and I didn't really think it was a pressure point coming from an engineering background, but my chief product officer of blockchain, he came from Twitch Prime, and his first day at working at Core Scientific, he says, "Kristy, where is the UX and UI designers around cryptocurrency?" I'm like, well, I'm sorry, Ganesh. We skipped that part of Bitcoin history. But it was a good point he brought up. Right now, it's very hard to use crypto, period. We've made some advancements. Wallets right now are actually top of the line when it comes to UX and UI. But when you think about installing things like nodes, that's kind of clunky still. When you think about getting your own crypto miner or updating your own firmware, really clunky. The UX and UI for general consumers is completely missing. And my hope is in the next 2 years, there's going to be more of a focus on that consumer UX and UI, on that consumer product, so that we can get more clients in.
Thank you, Kristy-Leigh. Yes, Alex.
Can I make a nice remark? So the Kristy just hit the right point. So right now, just find the new technology. It's evolutionary different. So right now we are just discovered new type of electronic money. So it's the same like printing the coin. If you're taking the coins from the beginning of a century, so like 20th century ago, so it was ugly. It was just the piece of metal and something was stamped on. If you're looking right now on the money, so they are beautiful. So there is a lot of design. They are nicely looking. So absolutely same here. So they just discover the electronic money, and they just discover how big benefits, how many features they can provide. But yes, it's still ugly. And I think it will stay for some time, but right now the evolutionary evolutionary cycles is much faster, and after a couple of years I think it will become more beautiful, and it will transform a lot of payments and will be quite reasonable and understandable for anyone, even for old grandma.
Yeah, but if you look at the most of tutorials for beginners, it still involves hitting commands into command line.
Yeah.
So we are definitely not there yet.
Yeah, but
it's getting better. Obviously.
Yeah. This is a way so the technician realize how efficient can be. It's practically so. There is a Kondratiev waves. So the Kondratiev was a scientist who discovered and described the economy cycles, and each economy grow up is based on some innovations. So the steam machines, electricity. So Bitcoin is our electricity. We discover absolutely different thing.
Thanks, Alex. All right, so we are wrapping up here, but I did something a little provocative. And because you guys have much more intelligent questions than I can ask, I did tell all of you guys before this panel that if you had a question you wanted to ask each other, then please go ahead, and I will actually open up the moderating mic over to you guys if you have a question for each other. Gordon?
Well, I think we're upstream, downstream, or competitors, but in general, I think we all work for this ecosystem. We wanted this ecosystem to be healthy and growing. I think we have some, commonality in terms of expectations, and that we don't want a hash rate to go up 10 times on certain coins. And then, we want everything to be like even playing field. I don't know. I mean, Alex, do you have any question on the mining side?
It's a good question. You're the best.
So I can ask you a lot of questions, and I can also even answer by myself on some of the questions. But first of all, I would like to say sorry for Kristy. So we are a little bit pushing about the Ethereum, about proof of work in Ethereum, why it's ASIC resistant and so on. But the good point, what the Gordon was also mentioned, so the hash rate is growing, but the hash rate is growing because the hash rate is a natural protection barrier to protect the market cap cost of a blockchain. It should be in the balance. If you, for example, have a coin and there is $10,000 in the market cap, so the cost of an attack should be enough high to protect the 10,000 market cap of a coin from the external attacks. And this is what happens naturally in all proof of work coins. The proof of work should grow up if the market cap of the coin is growing, and should be proportional. You cannot keep the Bitcoin if you mining the proof of work on 2 CPUs, because someone will just attack the network and take everything. So it should keep the barrier enough high to make the attack cost adequate to just disallow the attempts for attacking. And also then talking about the CPU and the GPU. So the GPU and CPU, there is a monopoly. So it's practically the Intel and AMD is manufacturing the CPU. But what they can do, and the Gordon can also absolutely support me on this, so they can create the ASIC and it can run any algorithm. Doesn't matter how many chips, how many CPU is Intel manufacturing, because it will be just more optimal, and the price for manufacturing the ASIC will be even lower. But attacking the Bitcoin right now, even for Intel, even for Apple, even for AMD, if they even came together, it's just impossible task. And it's not just because they're not able to manufacture the chip, it's also very complicated engineering, social, and technical task. Because you should find the source for electricity, you should build the data center, you should hire a lot of people. And this making the attack for Bitcoin almost impossible.
Thanks, Alex. All right, Pavel, one last question for you. I'm becoming a dictator again. And then Kristy-Leigh, I'm going to end with you. Pavel, please tell us a little bit more about pools, but specifically, what are we going to be talking about at this conference next year, do you think, regarding trends of pools?
I think we'll be discussing changes in the mining protocol. We are preparing our own version of it. It's similar in principle, but better hash introduced, and the core ideas. Some of the ideas are brought from better hash, but we think it can be done differently on a technical level. It's pretty complex discussion, and we had a lot of talks with Matt already about that. And I think it's going to be a topic, maybe the topic, because the security point of view and the capability of miners choosing their transactions, it's a really broad topic, and it's really important for the whole Bitcoin ecosystem. So I think it's really probable that we will discuss it in the future.
Hopefully I can moderate. And Kristy-Leigh, give me your wild, craziest prediction of something that will happen in the next 5 years.
In the next, wow, that's a
Yeah, you
very
get a
big
full
time
5.
span. I mean,
super wild out there, crazy prediction for something happening in the industry, the mining specific. You get 5 full years.
You will no longer be a kid.
it's true, Gordon. It's true. Prediction. Oh,
You just put the Kristy in the position of Isaac Asimov.
yes.
Well, you seem like a soothsayer, so I thought that I'd end with a crazy one.
I think we're going to actually see a few more Fortune 500 companies really step into blockchain in some surprising ways, especially on the hardware space. Keeping eyes on Intel, they've been doing a few Bitcoin patents, which I'm observing with interest. I think we're going to see them make a massive leap into SHA-256D hardware. I think we're also going to see ASIC hardware become more vertically integrated, and by that I mean I do envision a future, and hey, it might be crazy, but where we see nodes actually packed on top of ASICs. So you get a node paired with your ASIC. I see that we're also making a trend towards more AI hardware being bundled with SHA-256D chips. And what I specifically mean by that is some of the manufacturers are already taking trends to make little edge computing devices actually do most of the logic for their controller boards, which is interesting. It doesn't mean much now, but I do envision a trend where chips that are more reusable will actually become, in some form or manner, the basis for ASIC hardware. And I think we're going to have some big brand like Microsoft fully jump into the ecosystem, specifically in the Bitcoin ecosystem. I don't think it's going to be limited to Ethereum anymore. So I'm looking forward to that.
Fabulous. All right. Well, Pavel, Alex, Gordon, Kristy-Leigh, thank you so much. Magical crypto friends, thank you so much. And everybody, thanks for attending the panel.